and created the perfect boutique, a vision of rarity, combined with the expertise of her friends. This reporter, for one, is a believer.
I hate this episode. How do I start this off? I will say that the comedy was on point within the episode, and the execution of the interview motif was a new way to retell on an old theme. So why? Why do I hate this episode? Simply put, I feel this is a character assassination of Rarity, and every single one of the problems that arose in this episode could have been solved with the lessons she learned in Canterlot Boutique. Let's start off with a really easy one.
Oh, Miss Pommel! I'm so glad to see you. Now, as the sole sales associate at Rarity for you, I hate to add to your already overflowing plate of responsibilities, but it looks as though we have just a tad more to do before tonight than I thought.
Rarity hired Coco Pommel. The third meekest character in the show was hired to be the sole sales associate in the most demanding city in Equestria. How does this make sense? It's not like she needed a job. She's been kept busy making costumes for Bridal Way, which is something we saw in Made in Manhattan, to the point where she was too busy to volunteer for her own project. Not only is she meek, but she's known to take on too much work for her to handle, in the exact same episode. I would be able to buy Rarity giving her a job if she had lost her own, but that isn't what happens in this episode. Coco is quite honestly the worst choice she could have made. Rarity has had experience in hiring employees, and when you think about it, Sassy Saddles really was a good employee and only had the store's success in mind. It's just that she didn't know boundaries Rarity was able to reel in. Hiring out would not have been out of the realm of possibility. In fact, there's a certain mayor that we know still lives in Manhattan that would be perfect for such a role. It would make for a good redemption story. Also, there was the decision that Coco was the sole sales associate for a grand opening. Canterlot Carousel was flooded with customers on opening day, yet Rarity didn't expect as many people as arrived? Can I go bull on that? Anyone who has ever had a grand opening knows that it will likely be their highest traffic day ever, and it's better to have too many staff than not enough during a grand opening. Rarity should have known this already and planned better.
Wait, is this my merchandise shipment from Ponyville? It's completely disorganized.
Who the hell leaves their shipment unattended as the hired help packs and moves stuff? Who did you get to watch over the packing? Sweetie Belle? I realize this is a social commentary on delivery services, but seriously, half of this is your fault, Rarity.
Let me say another way. Hire her or I raise rent until you no can afford.
Oh, welcome aboard.
Rarity is a tenant in Canterlot Boutique. In addition, she's a business mayor and should know her rights and responsibilities as both an owner and a tenant already. Considering the allegory to our own landlord-tenant system in the US and Canada, she should already know that there are laws in place to prevent secondary intent by a landlord. Plus, she has a friend who can record proof on her horn and play it back, so it's not like this would be a hearsay case.
First idea! Instead of clothes, we sell glow-in-the-dark teeth! Like this. But they glow in the dark! Golly, what a splendid idea! Glow-in-the-dark teeth! What was she thinking?
Need I remind you of Sassy Saddles? Rarity knows how to lay down the law and make people work for her in the way that she sees fit. She not only didn't do so here, she didn't even make an attempt. However, the resolution which AJ came up with is exactly the way I expected it to wind up. So props on that one.
Did you hear that? Turns out there's a Club Pony party palace upstairs.
It is customary for new tenants to introduce themselves to those around them, and especially if any of those are businesses that could conflict or have useful contacts that would be able to assist in opening. By doing so, Rarity would have had an introduction to vinyl in written form, and knowing that she was a Ponyville native like herself, would have been willing to work with her. This is likely what was going through her head when Pinkie proposed the merger, because she knew Rarity and of Rarity. At the very least, they would have been able to work out a schedule of when vinyl wasn't performing, and to plan the opening around then. However, all of this would have been much easier if...
Here it is! Rarity for you!
Rarity, it's lovely, but are you sure you'll be ready to open tonight?
if they had gotten into the building at least a week before opening. Seriously, this is the most ridiculous and glaringly preposterous element of this episode. From an advertising standpoint alone, the store's contents wouldn't have been shown, the window display is not ready, and the pictures in the front of the store would have had a big for sale sign up on it. Unless she has Trixie's Photoshop genie in her employ, Rarity would have had to order all the advertisements weeks in advance. On top of that, some businesses can spend weeks, if not months, building everything and getting it ready. I mean, the place needed to be dusted, scrubbed, painted, furniture built, and all other sorts of things for a normal opening. There is no way she and Sassy built up Canterlot Carousel within a day, so why is Rarity for you the exception?
Maybe we should just postpone.
Postpone? Darling, tonight is the last night of the fall season. If we don't open tonight, it won't be...
Perfect.
In a world where winter is arbitrary, only controlled by Cloudsdale passing by, open it up on the last day of the winter season instead. Most of your looks are designed for the warmer months anyway, especially those on the rack. Not only that, but you learned a valuable lesson about taking on too much in Manhattan 2 trips ago.
Hello? The door appears to be stuck.
All of Rarity's issues could have been solved before the episode with the business sense and savvy she showed in Canterlot Boutique. In order to make this episode, they took the idiot's stick and beat Rarity to death with it, assassinating her character that was built up in the month of Rarity last season. And that's actually the big problem. Remember, this is a Nick Confalone episode, the guy who wrote No Second Prances. I'm going to borrow a clip of British Ninja's review.
Dear God, what happened, sweetheart? You went from arguably the best and most developed character of the show into a self-absorbed moron. Twilight hasn't just been hit with the idiot stick, she's been smashed by the whole damn tree.
Do you see the problem here? In order to have an entertaining episode, Nick has to regress a character to a much more base form, to the point where the decisions are just plain dumb. This was also the same problem with Party Pooped, when no one seemed to get after the rule of 3 that the Yaks weren't going to accept their efforts. These are all flawed characters, and you shouldn't need to make them more flawed just to create an episode. In Party Pooped, I was okay with it because it was a Pinkie episode. In No Second Prances, Twilight annoyed the hell out of me, but I still accepted it. However, there was so much bad decision making in Saddle Row Review that my suspension of disbelief couldn't take it any longer. That's where the episode failed. And remember what I said in the beginning? Every single one of the problems that arose in this episode could have been solved.
Come on! If we hurry, we can get there before the paper's even delivered to Rarity's house. Maybe she won't read the article.
Rainbow, why are you flying at the same speed as every pony else? If anything, you or Pinkie could make it there the fastest. Also, it might have been a good idea for Book Horse to read the article first. This episode had so many glaring and preposterous flaws that I couldn't enjoy the story, and essentially retcons everything Rarity has learned thus far as a businessman. I'm Dulcet, and this has been your Logical Reset.